go ahead and introduce our panelists because I want to make sure they have enough time to speak, and then if there's any questions at the end. But we are excited. I'm just going to introduce them in alphabetical order. And if it works for you all can just share your information alphabetically. But our first panelist is Judge Omar Aboulhosn. We appreciate him joining us today. He is a Princeton native, graduated from Concord in 1989, and then graduated from WVU College of Law in 92. He was very involved as a Concord student. He was on SGA as the only commuter student on the board the whole time that he was there, so that's interesting, and had some really good experiences with SGA. He practiced law in Bluefield at the firm of Richardson and Davis from 1992 to 1994, and he was with Sanders, Austin, Swope, and Flanagan from 1994 to 2008, where he became a partner in 1999. He became a circuit court judge for Mercer County on January 1st of 2009, and he was then appointed as a United States Magistrate judge by the district judges of the United States District Court for the Southern District of West Virginia, and that was effective January 1st of 2016. He's also a current member of the board of directors of the Jonathan Powell Hope Foundation, which helps families of children with cancer, and the Eliza Hope Foundation, which helps children and families regarding autism spectrum disorders. And he's also part of a group of community volunteers that have organized a community veterans breakfast that is held annually on the first Saturday of November. So, Omar, we appreciate you being with us, and we'll go ahead and get started with what you'd like to share.
Well, thank you, sir. I just appreciate the opportunity to be here. I don't know how many of these folks are students on here, but I guess we're recording it for future students to watch as well. So I'll just briefly touch on my time at Concord and how it prepared me to go on to law school and how I got to where I'm at today. But the education at Concord back when I graduated is a little bit different than what it is now. There's some opportunities now for students that I didn't have back then. But at the same time, they didn't have the pleasure of having some of the professors that I did in my political science courses and then my communications courses, Dr. Berger, for example. But the opportunities they have now to participate in moot court competitions and different things like that, I think are fascinating. I would have loved to have those opportunities as well. But Concord prepared me well for going on to law school. Now, I hated reading. I got to be up front. I couldn't stand to read. But of course, you had to learn how to read by the time you went to law school. You better figure out the best way you can, because you're reading a couple hundred pages a night sometimes. And so, but what I ended up doing was treating my law school career as a job. So I tried to get everything done from 8 o'clock in the morning to 5 o'clock in the evening. Tried to get my classes as early as I could, and then spent the rest of the afternoon preparing for assignments that I got that day, so that I would get them done that day. And it worked out well for me for the 3 years I was in law school. I generally had my weekends free because of that, and didn't have any real late nights because I treated it like that was my job. And I was fortunate enough to where I didn't have to get a job. I got a scholarship. There's wonderful scholarships actually for Appalachian students. It's called the Council on Legal Education Opportunities, and it's for Appalachian and minority students. Appalachia was considered is considered an economic minority, and so if you live in Appalachia, you can apply for the scholarship. And so I applied for it, and I got it as an Appalachian. Most of the folks that were in the class that I graduated with were actually African American. There was about 30 African American. There were about 4 Palestinians. There was a Native American, and then there was this guy. Granted, a very big descent, but there you had this Appalachian guy with a Southern West Virginia accent. And they were like, "What are you doing here?" I told them I was an Appalachian Arab. That's why I'm here. I got a scholarship for it. So, but it's available to all Appalachians, and it was a wonderful scholarship for law school. And it's funded by Congress, and it's still out there today. I don't know if it's in the same format as it was back when I did it, but it was something that I just fell into. Did not know about. Applied for it on a whim, and it was a very valuable scholarship at the end of the day. And so that scholarship plus my parents helping pay for my room and board turned out to where I didn't have to work, and so I used law school as my career. And so I treat it as a job. So after law school, I was fortunate enough to, because of my summer interns that I did in Bluefield, I was able to stay on with the law firm that I'd worked with for 2 summers beforehand. And they gave me a job after I graduated, worked there for a couple of years, moved to, that was on the defense side of practicing, defense legal practice. And then I went to the plaintiff side and worked there for the rest of my career until I had the good fortune of being appointed as a circuit judge, and then having the blessing of being appointed a United States Magistrate judge. So that's what I'm doing today. And I tell people that, there's nothing special about me being a judge. I was a pretty mediocre student when I graduated Concord. I was 3.2, just under honors, and then went on to law school, and I was completely average in law school. I came out with like a 3.1, 3.2. I wasn't hors de coif. I wasn't top of my class. I just fit right in with everybody else. But and here I am getting to do what I do, and so I'm very, very fortunate. So I think if I can be doing what I'm doing, anybody can be doing what I'm doing. So I'm just blessed to be here. So that's kind of my spiel. I would encourage students, if they go into law school, to treat it like a job. If you don't have to work outside, if you can at all work it out to not have to work outside of going to school, treat it like a job and get it all done during the day that you get your assignments, do your work, and then that way you don't get behind, because it only takes a day or two of getting behind and you cannot overcome that. It's kind of like getting behind on your taxes. You never want to be behind on your taxes, so you can't overcome it. And getting behind on your assignments in law school would be an absolute disaster. So anyhow, that's my little spiel for it.
All right. We appreciate you sharing that with us. And like I said, we've got a couple other alums that are going to talk. And then after everybody's had an opportunity to kind of share their story, then we'll get into if anybody has questions or any of those details. So our next panelist is Thad Bowyer. Thad graduated from Woodrow Wilson High School in Beckley in 2005. And then while he was working at least 50 hours a week, he majored in political science with a minor in pre-law and graduated from Concord in 2011. He then got his JD from WVU College of Law in 2015. After that, he came back to Southern West Virginia and began practicing at the law offices of Warren McGraw. And for 4 years, he worked with clients in a litany of areas from civil, criminal, habeas corpus, mental hygiene, conservatorship, guardianships and adoptions, domestic relations, to juvenile abuse and neglect cases. He also, just in those 4 years, successfully argued cases before the Supreme Court of Appeals of West Virginia. In early 2019, the Honorable Darrell Poling, Circuit Judge of Raleigh County, offered him the position of his judicial law clerk. And he knew what an incalculable experience that would be and the knowledge that you could gain from that position. So he accepted the position and is still currently serving in that role. And he also said that whether in the role of private counsel or as a judicial law clerk, he has zealously worked to make his home, Southern West Virginia, a better place through the law. So Thad, we appreciate you being with us today.
Yes, ma'am. Thanks for having me. So I had got your email. I'll kind of just run through the list about how Concord prepared me. Law school experience, certainly want to reiterate what Judge had mentioned. You want to treat it like a job. In law school, I believe you form patterns of behavior that you're going to practice throughout the rest of your professional career. So if you start procrastinating in law school, that's how you're going to practice in life, and you can't do that. For one, I think it almost borders on malpractice. So as far as Concord, there are certainly tons of resources that a student can utilize at Concord. For one, I know the capstone course when I was there. I'm not sure if it's still around, but at least at the time when I was there, it prepared you for the LSAT. It prepares you. I mean, you've got your application materials ready from that course. It was a part of it. So you can't underestimate the LSAT. That ties into scholarships and funds. So your capstone course. Another resource that I know that Grace Weigel had done from WVU was the Summer Law Institute, which also helps for LSAT. It helps you prepare for your first year. And I credit her with where I'm at today, along with staff at Concord. So there's tons of resources to prepare, to help, to get ready. And as far as getting into law school, I mean, you're not there because you're lazy. You're there because you're smart and you want to do it. So you have to treat it like a job, 9 to 5, 8:30 to 5, and sometimes a little later that you're going to have overtime. Because like Judge said, you get tons of reading every day. It doesn't let up. Sometimes I compared it to being a bucket just being poured water in and the faucet doesn't get cut off. And I think that's perhaps to test your mental acuity and make sure that you can keep up with it, because it doesn't stop. So you gotta stay on it. But there are tons of resources. Law school is competitive, but at the same time, there's a camaraderie. It's almost like civilian boot camp, really. You're all in it together. You're all learning. You're all getting treated like dirt sometimes. I know certain professors, that might have been the old style. I know Professor Katie was certainly hard on a lot of people. But you just go through it. I enjoy it. The law is where you can make a lot of changes. You can help people. And that's why I'm here. So that's my 2 cents for what it's worth.
All right, we appreciate that. And our final panelist is Travis Prince. Travis is a native of Southern West Virginia and a 2008 honors graduate from Concord, where he majored in political science and minored in pre-law and geology. While he was at Concord, Travis was also active in the SGA, serving as faculty senate representative, board of governors representative, and he was the student body representative on the presidential search committee. He also graduated from WVU College of Law with honors in 2011, and he currently serves as the president of the Monongalia County Bar Association. He also Travis practices catastrophic personal injury law in the Morgantown office of Bailey Glasser LLP, which is a nationwide law firm that was founded in West Virginia. So thanks for joining us, Travis.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Phil, for organizing this event. And it's always nice to see President Bogus as well. And I have to say hello to Sharon Manzo. It's been a very long time. And it is so nice to see you as well. I just want to say that it's an honor to speak with you all and to share some of my experiences at Concord. I certainly cherish my time there on the campus beautiful and look back on those experiences, if not daily, at least weekly, in my practice, and especially when I was in law school. So when I was thinking about what I would share with the students at Concord, as far as their experiences now and what they can expect in law school, I really sort of came up with 3 areas that I think that Concord helped me and that Concord would help anyone else that wanted to go to law school. And those areas are networking, student government, and the curriculum at Concord. And I'll start with networking. You know, the college campus community at Concord is just perfect for networking, and it's you know, you'd think that a small campus maybe you wouldn't have those opportunities, but it's not the case at all. You know, in my experience and in the experience of the students that are currently at Concord, you know, the small graduating class sizes really lends itself to good networking opportunities. And especially for me, those small class sizes allowed me to learn to network. So it was at Concord where I learned to network with my peers, those that were in my major, and those I would have classes with, and those who I just would meet. And you know, those skills I learned at Concord. I did not have them in high school, and I learned those networking skills at Concord and used them in law school, and still use them today. You know, a lot of my referral sources, you know, were friends and classmates at Concord, and those relationships follow me to this day. So I would encourage the students at Concord to take advantage of those opportunities on campus to network and to learn those networking skills, because you will need them in law school, and you will need them in your legal career. So the sooner you can hone those skills, the better. And also, I want to mention the and I don't want to forget. I just in preparation for our discussion today, I got on LinkedIn and searched Concord University, and there's 140,000 results of people who their paths have crossed at Concord at some point, whether they were educated there or they worked there. So don't take it lightly when you have these opportunities to network at Concord, because they will serve you well going forward. And also, I want to mention the Student Government Association at Concord. I was very active in the student government, as I'm sure the other speakers were as well. And that experience is something that I leaned on heavily in law school, because in the SGA meetings, we would often stand and speak in front of 50 to 100 people who would come. At the time when I was in school, the SGA was very active. And attendance was pretty high, and I hope it's still the case. But there are friends I made in SGA. Again, a good networking opportunity to practice those skills that are still my friends today. Some of those classmates followed me to law school. So the SGA is at Concord for me, and hopefully still is the case, is a very fertile ground for many different opportunities at Concord. And thankfully, the administration at Concord and its relationship with the student government allows it to be an environment that is conducive to learning and providing a good experience for students. So, I would really encourage folks to be involved with the Student Government Association at Concord. And lastly, I want to mention the curriculum at Concord, because it, without a doubt, prepared me for a very positive and fulfilling experience in law school. In particular, the pre-law program at Concord, it was just fantastic. John David Smith led that program when I was there, and I hope that someone has taken the reins, because it was phenomenal. The classes I had at Concord, Civ Pro, criminal law, contracts, torts, etc., they mirrored the first year classes you have in law school, which is, by and large, the most difficult year that you have in law school is year one. So a lot of those topics and a lot of those cases and that you read in law school, day in and day out, it was deja vu for me. I'd read those cases, we had discussed them at Concord, and that experience was invaluable. To have gone through the pre-law curriculum at Concord. I mean, my goodness, the textbooks that we had at Concord, I used to help study in law school. It was just phenomenal, the experiences in the pre-law program. And I have to also mention, the mock trial aspect of the pre-law program. When I graduated from Concord, I had already tried a case. We had walked through direct examinations, cross-examinations, given closing arguments, and I did all of that before a sitting judge in Mercer County Circuit Court. So this was not just an exercise in a classroom, but we went to the courthouse and we tried a case. There was no one that I heard of and that attended a different school like a WVU or a Marshall that had a similar experience in law school. So I honestly felt like I was a step or two ahead of my peers in law school. And and that is largely due to the pre-law program at CU. So, so when I look at, what prepared me for law school at Concord, it was the networking opportunities and the opportunities to develop networking skills that you absolutely have to succeed. It was the opportunities provided by student government that were just tenfold. I could talk just about those, quite frankly. And then it was the pre-law curriculum and the opportunities that provided me. It made law school, which is a very difficult experience, like the other speakers have talked about. It made it feel familiar to me. Law school felt familiar to me because of my experiences at Concord. So I would encourage folks to take advantage of those opportunities. And I wish you all the best of luck that choose to go to law school. Practicing law is, in my opinion, the most rewarding experience you can have, day in and day out. And I would encourage you, if you're interested in it, and to pursue it. And I know that if you do that, Concord will provide you with the best foot forward to have a successful career in the law.
Thank you very much, Travis. We appreciate that. Now, and again, I'm not sure, Phil normally handles this part of the presentation. I don't know, Phil, are you with us?
Doesn't sound like he is, but I was.
No, so he must still be having some issues. So
I was going to interject. When I talked earlier about I didn't have some of the opportunities that the newer students had, but they didn't have the opportunity to have a George Moore who taught political science. And I'm telling you what, George Moore was just the greatest guy there was as a professor. He wanted, law school or college or high school, George Moore was the guy. Him and Ron Berger were the two professors that influenced me the most in my entire educational career, from kindergarten all the way through law school. Those are the two folks. And there's another program that I had the benefit of doing, and I was a Judith Herndon legislative intern when I was at Concord. And there's two different internships they do at the state capitol. Judith Herndon is the one that's a whole semester long, and you learn 12 or 15 hours worth of credit doing that program. And then they have the Fraser Singleton, which is a week's long internship. But I did the Judith Herndon, and I was accepted into that, and I spent a whole semester in Charleston working in the legislature and also working with the executive branch. I worked with in the Office of the Attorney General. And Dr. Moore wrote me a letter of recommendation for that internship that I've kept to this day because it's the nicest letter that anyone's ever written. I showed my mother that letter and said, "Mom, you can learn to write this stuff about me, do not." But it was just a really good experience, and it opened up doors to networking. That it opened up to folks that were in that program. Some of us went to law school together. Some of them stayed in state government. One of my interns actually became the press secretary to the governor at the end of that internship. So, and she wasn't a Concord grad, but she was a Concord student. She was in that same internship as I was, and she had a job as the actual press secretary for the governor at the time. So I thought that was pretty impressive. But anyhow, there's great opportunities that in Concord and that Concord is a part of with the different internships that I think folks, I don't know if there's been another Judith Herndon legislative intern from Concord. I don't know if you all would know that or not, but it's a great opportunity. I think they're still doing it. So.
Okay. Well, I think Phil has messaged me. I think he is still having some issues with getting the audio and video together. So I'll just go ahead and open it up. Or is there anybody that has any questions for any of our panelists? Any comments that anybody else wants to share? Yeah, Zoe.
I am actually the Board of Governors representative for our SGA. And if any of you all that had experience on SGA would like for me to reach out to you, we're interested in having some speakers in SGA, and we would love to have, especially law, people come in and help us kind of reorganize our SGA, because it's kind of all over the place right now, but we're trying to get it back together. And it would be great to hear your all's previous experiences on SGA, especially like the organizations that are a part of it, hearing about it, and would probably encourage a lot of people to join or be more active in SGA.
I would be glad to do that. So I was on student government. I think Travis says he was on student government as well. I was the only, at the time, I was the only commuter student on student government. There wasn't any other commuters, and so I kind of took the commuter mantle with me. And my two greatest accomplishments were I got the inclement weather schedule passed when I was on student government. That's because I almost wrecked one day going to school. I wanted them to call it the Omar schedule, but they call it the inclement weather schedule for some reason. Then the second thing that I thought was that I got to do was we started a daycare center, and it was getting ready to go under because it didn't have enough funding. And I was able to lobby. You know, we students pay this student fee it's part of their student fees, and so all these organizations get a little chunk of those student fees. And I was able to go to all these different organizations and ask for 25 cents a student or 50 cents a student or what have you. And I was able to create a fund that was $3.25 at the time per student. And the only last one I had to do was convince student government to 25 cents to make it $3.50, and you multiply it by the number of students. It became a fund that goes to the daycare center. And I was able to convince the student government by one vote. It was 4-3, I think, and it passed 4-3 that we got them to come on board, and we created a fund within the fund. We created this fund, didn't raise student fees, and I think it's still done to this day that the daycare center gets a small chunk of student fees. I hope it is. I don't know if it is or not, but nonetheless, at the time, that's what it was. They got a part of the student fee, and it gave them a little bit of funds to help operate. And it was important because from the commuter constituency, if you have a non-traditional student that needed daycare, they were able to get it there at Concord, still come to school there and provide for them. So I would be glad to help you guys in any way whatsoever. Just reach out to me, and I would be glad to do whatever I can to help student government.
Okay, sounds great. Also, I'm a commuter student, so thank you for the inclement weather. But I know all of us are really eager to actually get some things done before we graduate. We actually only have, I think, 2 political science majors on our executive board, so maybe you all talking about it will get some people more interested. I'm actually an accounting major, but I'm minoring in political science, so I'm just interested in all of this. So thank you all so much.
And if I had to do over again, I would be an accounting major with a minor in political science instead of a political science major with a minor in communications. Although I love communications, but I got into law school on the very last day that WVU was accepting students. Now I got into University of Dayton the very first day they were accepting students, but I didn't want to go to Dayton, Ohio, to be honest with you. I wanted to go stay and go to WVU, but I got in on the very last day they were accepting students. And I got in on the skin of my teeth, even though I had a 3.2 at Concord. I was right at 50 percentile in LSAT, which is not great, but that's what it was. And so I had it in hindsight, had I not gone to law school, I was like, what am I going to do with my political science degree? It'd been nice to have minor in that and been an accounting major. I've told people that I should have been an accounting major with a minor in that, but it's all worked out at the end of the day. I'm doing what I'm doing.
Well, Travis, here's a question for you. What are some networking tips that you would offer for students to focus on both making the connections and then as far as looking at future connections?
Okay. A few points. One, I'd be happy to help you, Zoe, and work with the judge in any capacity you might find helpful. I think that as far as specific networking opportunities to Concord, it seems, and it's been several years since I've, obviously been on campus, but obviously SGA is a great networking opportunity. But we also, at the time, we had Phi Alpha Delta, which was a pre-law fraternity that was active, and I was involved in that as well. But don't overlook networking opportunities are everywhere. And what I liked about Concord is that it seemed as though there were always events going on somewhere, whether it be a comedian in the student center, or some event in the student center, or what have you. But networking opportunities are everywhere. And what's great about Concord is that with the smaller class sizes, it's just easier. It's easier to get those experiences and to practice your networking skills, so to speak, where you go to an event, or you belong to an organization and you want to host an event. And those opportunities are just a little bit easier in a smaller college community than they would be at WVU in Morgantown, for example. My advice would be to sort of expand your view somewhat. And I think that you'll see that those networking opportunities are fairly abundant, even in a small campus like Concord.
Okay.
I would mention, Travis, thank you for being here, all of you, but it's a different world right now. You might have noticed outside here. And I think Zoe is probably challenged by the fact that there are no students. There are so few students here. It's making a huge difference this year. We're hoping to be back to something closer to what you saw in as quickly as possible. But it makes it challenging for that kind of networking. And it is critically important. So I'll just throw that in.
Yeah, I tell people I'm so glad I'm not a freshman right now, because I could not imagine trying to do networking and things like you're talking about, because it would be almost impossible or absolutely miserable. But Concord's done a good job of having some events and stuff, and SGA has tried to have virtual homecoming and try to boost morale, but it's definitely hard, especially right now.
I can only imagine how difficult it is. I mean, I can't wait till this is over. Supposedly it's over next Wednesday, but I don't believe that for a second. But I would like, oh, thank goodness. I hope they're right. It's over with next Wednesday and we get back to normal. But it's not. I can only. I've got a daughter who's a senior this year, and but she's doing student teaching. It's just, it's awful. I can't wait till we get back to some semblance of normal. But I don't know how they're written. I don't know how students are written, but they're resilient. They're much more resilient than I can be. That's for sure.
They are very resilient. That's for sure. Another question that we have is, so Syracuse University has begun an online law degree that is ABA accredited. So we'd like to hear what each of the panelists' thoughts are on online law education in the future.
That's a question?
Yeah.
But I don't know how you do law school online. So, I mean, the experience in the classroom, the having the Professor Katie's and the rest of them torture you during school really is an education in and of itself as to how to handle going into a courtroom and a judge grilling you. I mean, you get some of those butterflies out of you in that experience. I don't know that if a professor was doing it to me by Skype or by Zoom or something like that it's going to have the same effect. So I don't know if I've answered the question.
That's okay. That's your opinion. Thad or Travis, do you all have anything to add? And your thoughts on that?
Sure. I mean, it seems like all schools are going virtual anyways, so it's largely dependent on how things pan out. Hopefully everything goes away by November 3rd. I don't know if it will or not. Fingers and legs are crossed. But just like Judge said, it's hard to imagine that working given how classes are conducted. I mean, you're sitting there, you're reading, you're going along, and then all of a sudden you've got a question that you better have the answer to, or next time you're going to make sure you have the answer. So I don't know if that would correlate too well with virtual, but that may be the way things have to go. So if things improve, I would say go in person. you're going to benefit much more than you would if you're just doing it by computer.
Yeah, I'll just basically agree with the other panelists. I think that if it's one thing for the law school to be virtual by sort of by necessity due to the pandemic, but it's a different situation to go to a virtual law school and seek out a virtual program. I can tell you that your experience will be watered down, so to speak. And Judge Aboulhosn mentioned this to some extent, that, you know, in law school, part of the experience is being immersed in the Socratic method. That you love, you love it, but you hate it. And, you know, it's hard, and it's not entirely different from what Judge Aboulhosn does to his attorneys in his courtroom. It's hard, and you are asked difficult questions, and you're put to task. And it's a key part of your legal education, quite frankly. And those experiences will really form who you are as a litigator for the rest of your career. So you don't get that when you're calling into a class via Zoom. It's a different experience. Not to mention the networking aspect is all but gone, I think, when you're not on campus and you're not physically going through these experiences with your fellow students. And I think also, you know, one aspect that I do not like about virtual law school is, I didn't mention this before, but I coach a mock trial team at the law school in Morgantown. And really, in many respects, I coach that team just like Marshall Campbell coached our team at Concord. But because of the pandemic, there's really no way to do those virtually. The competition that our team goes to every spring has already been canceled. And I would expect that, you know, those opportunities at a virtual law school would probably be non-existent as well. I think that you're not going to have a good experience in the classroom. You're not going to have networking opportunities. And if you're interested in, you know, mock trial or that type of work, it's a square peg in a round hole when you're talking about mock trial experiences and virtual learning. So I would recommend that you really steer away from that if you could.
Can I ask, how is that accepted? I don't know if there are graduates of schools like that yet, but how would that be accepted in the real world of that you all work in? I always remember thinking that online degrees will never be accepted by corporate America. Needless to say, I was an idiot. I mean, I couldn't see that far ahead, and that would be accepted, and they are accepting it. And I mean, I don't know that every corporation or every great opportunity is, but how's that viewed from the legal profession?
I would think it depends upon if you got an online degree from Concord, for example, because of Concord's reputation already. It's a little different than if you got an online degree from one of these only online schools out there. I mean, I could buy a degree online real easy, and that Concord's not known for easy degrees. I mean, you have to work whatever you get, and you know when you get done at Concord and you got a degree that it means something. And so my guess is it depends on how it works and that, you know, where it comes from, what's the foundation of the school. I wouldn't have a problem if someone graduated from Concord with an online degree or WVU law school with an online degree, because I know the reputation of both of those schools. I would probably be a little hesitant from the law school aspect of it because of the hands-on experience you get in law school with some of the clinics that you can do. If you didn't get that opportunity, I would say you probably didn't have the same education as someone on campus. That would be my view of it.
Thank you.
Thad, did you have something else you wanted to add? I saw you had raised your hand.
Well, it kind of touches to the same line of question, I would look at class size, because I mean, the more students you have, I think quality correlates to that. So if you've got a ton of, say, 1,000 students, you're not going to get. It's not realistic to expect the same one-on-one time as you would as traditional school. It's just not reality. So I would take that into consideration before looking into a school solely online. Class size, graduation rates, bar passage rates, to take that into account. And, you know, the ABA is one thing, but make sure it's acceptable to the state bar that you're wanting to practice in. And, you know, in practice, professional life, I've never been asked where I went to school. You know, it comes up in passing when you're talking, but as long as it's credited and it's fine with the state bar, it doesn't come up day to day.
That makes sense. Does anybody have any final questions for our panelists? I saw Phil actually just sent a question. We'll end with this one. How does law school change your way of thinking in everyday life?
Nobody wants to argue with me anymore. I don't know why.
You get this lawyer's brain, and it's the way of life for you. And you know, I've been accused by my wife and my daughter to quit thinking like a lawyer and act like a human being. And so, I don't know how to separate the two. I thought I was. But, it does change the way you think. I think for a good way, but law school does. It's an experience. It's a way of life, and it changes you in a good way. But it does give you a lawyer's brain.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it does change the way you think. In some respects, you know, the law school experience will make you more cynical, but also it sort of changes the way you think in a very logical way. I think that, you know, logic is a big part of the law school experiences and thinking logically. So it does change really your perception on a lot of things. But the way, you know, the way you approach a problem and the way you approach an issue with a client or a potential issue with a client, it definitely, if you're not careful, it will make you very cynical. But it does promote very logical thinking in a way that you can't quite explain, but it's definitely a natural consequence of the way you learn in law school.
Interject one more thing before we get off. First of all, with Thad working as a law clerk for a circuit judge, that is where the rubber meets the road in the practice of law, because circuit judges do everything from the most minor of cases to ones where you're dealing with people's lives and you're deciding incarceration for the rest of their life, or you're taking children away from parents and what have you. And the orders that they produce, that the law clerks help the circuit judges with, are tremendously valuable. So he's doing God's work right now as a law clerk for a circuit judge. It's big time work. And then you got Travis, who works for Bailey and Glasser. And I remember when it was just Bailey and just Glasser, and then it became Bailey and Glasser. And the law firm is a remarkable firm because it is truly a nationwide firm. And they have done incredible work. Without getting details, my sister needed a lawyer. She lived in Nashville, Tennessee, but she needed one in San Francisco, California, and it was Bailey and Glasser that represented her. And it was, you know, my contact with them, John Barrett at Bailey and Glasser. I contacted him and says, hey, we got an office in San Francisco or Sacramento or whatever. But they are a remarkable firm. I've seen them grow from 2 people to this. I don't know how many lawyers you have working for you now, but it's a remarkable firm. And they take young lawyers and they make them young warrior lawyers, and they get the skills and they take their skills and they make them 10 times better than they ever thought they could be, and do some incredible work. I've seen their lawyers in court. I've seen what they've done. And some of those lawyers have come to that firm and gone out and created their own firms afterwards, and it's been remarkable what they've done. Truly become cream of the crop in the legal profession. So you guys are doing great work. Appreciate what you do.
Thank you, Judge.
Any other closing thoughts from our panelists before we let everybody go? Well, I want to thank the three of you for joining us today. I think it was very interesting. You all have some good different experiences, different perspectives, and we really appreciate you sharing those with us today. Thanks to everybody who attended, and hope you all have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. Zoe, contact me.
Thank you.
You guys.
Will do. Thank you.
Bye-bye.